Hey, buddy. Hello, kitty, kitty, kitty. So here we are pressing a Petite Sirah wine. This is all the free run. This was about 1,200 pounds of grapes a week ago. It was harvested last Saturday in a heat wave. We cold soaked it for a couple of days, and then we started fermentation on Monday. The primary fermentation is pretty much done. There's very little residual sugar in there right now. I'm basically taking the wine, the free run wine, putting it into this flex tank where it can rest a few weeks, perhaps even a month or two. Finish fermentation, settle, before we put it into one of the barrels. I'm not sure if I'll be buying new barrels this year. I bought some last year. I've been buying them every year. But we want to make sure the barrels don't hide the flavor of the wine. They tend not to. We toast them lightly. We use a hybrid French and American oak. I would never say our wine is over oaky. I don't think I've ever experienced that. Certainly not in the last 10 years. The only time we had over oaked wine was when we used a small barrel. So the surface area of wood was greater. I'm using a little strainer here. It catches some of the seeds and things to keep them from getting into the tank. And even though we're using the strainer, there's still a fair amount of sediment that's going to get in there. I would say a few weeks from now, a month from now, all that sediment will settle. You probably have about this much sediment at the bottom of that tank. So Petite Sirah, 2020 Petite Sirah. It's a very, very dark varietal. I don't know if you can see the color, but it's quite dark, very purple. The color of a bishop's vestments. It's a nice, very dark, very darker than the Grenache, darker than the Tempranillo. A lot of winemakers like to use it for blending, and historically that may have been its use. But we found, and I think a lot of the winemakers in the area found that an estate Petite Sirah wine can taste really, really good. And we've had some good ones over the years. Of course, our hope is this will be the best one ever. And it may end up being quite good. The grapes were around 23 bricks at harvest. But because there were a number of raisins in the bunches, during the cold soak, the sugars increased to around a bit over 24 bricks, which is ideal. The pH is manageable, a little on the high side, around 3.6, but compared to pHs of 4, you know, this is a manageable pH for us. And we may end up blending a lower pH wine in there. We'll have to see if it needs blending or not. In California, if 80% of the wine is Petite Sirah, we're allowed to call it Petite Sirah. So sometimes that allows us to blend in a little bit of Grenache and maybe some of our Tempranillo or even Aglianico. Or we may decide to blend in nothing at all and just have it be a pure Petite Sirah. I started at about 9 o'clock, West Coast time. Generally, this part actually goes fairly fast in filling up the tank. But overall, I'd say it's a project that's for 4 to 5 hours. There's probably close to, let's say, about 90 gallons of wine. This tank is 78 gallons, so let's just call it 80. I'm estimating I might get another 10 to 15 gallons of it as well, and I'll put it into another tank. But by the time I'm finished, the whole process is probably 4 or 5 hours. And then of course I have to clean up. That's another hour. So it's kind of an all-day job. And in fact, there's two batches to press. There's this batch, and then I have a batch of Grenache, which was harvested at the same time. And it's also finished its primary fermentation. I think you can see my hands are purple, stained by the grapes. I guess it's a badge of honor for a winemaker. It being the pandemic, I guess we're not out shaking hands with lots of people right now. At least I'm not. This is the first time we've done a live stream. I have no idea if anyone is there. It says one person. It's probably me. Or maybe my mom and dad are watching. So once this is filled, we're gonna actually press the wine. Believe it or not, there's generally about five gallons plus or minus of wine in there. And it's good wine. Some people call that pressings. Generally, we press relatively lightly. We're not trying to extract every last ounce of wine out of there. Sometimes if you do that, it's a little bit more has more tannins in it. So let me see, I'll push this down a little bit. We'll get a few more skins in here. These are the grape skins. This is called the basket press. Larger wineries use something called an electronic bladder press, which will press automatically. Here, we press this with a crank. I guess you could say our whole operation is, you know, handmade or handcrafted. For the most part, we trim a lot of the weeds by hand outside in the vineyard. I say that with a smile. It's actually pretty true. The wine just comes out better that way when you trim the weeds by hand. It's getting kind of full. We get one more scoop in there. Oh. Now you want to make sure the bucket underneath here doesn't overflow. By the way, I'm using a strainer. I have a strainer there to catch some of the gunk. Try to get most of the skins out, make sure there are no seeds in there. And let's see if it's full enough. I generally try to fill it up pretty good. You know, at the end, I try to minimize the number of times I have to empty this thing because it's a bit of work to empty it. We like to compost the seeds. I think in Italy, not the seeds, I mean these skins. The skins smell really good. I mean, these are wine infused skins. There's a bit of some notes of a perfume in there. I can't quite identify it, but usually in this wine, there's hints of berries, currants, cassis, sometimes apple, sometimes notes of citrus, a little bit of like a grapefruit rind scent. Very, very little though. I guess it's best to leave those descriptions to the sommeliers. Here's my little bucket. I guess you can't really see. Oh, you can see a little bit there. I don't want to tilt it too much, but that's the wine. You could drink it now, but I'm not going to. It's early in the morning. If you're seeing the machine behind me, that machine is the crusher destemmer. Oh. That's a machine we use to gently crush the grapes, that is to break their skins. We sometimes stomp them with our feet, which is a lot of fun. And it's not only fun, it feels really good. It's like a foot massage. So instead of, paying $50 for a foot reflexology, stomp grapes. All right, at this point, let's get started with the press. So what I may do, I'm going to go ahead and cover this to keep any fruit flies around there. It smells so good. There's a few fruit flies from outside. They're finding their way in here. So remarkably, we've been keeping them out of the winery most of the last few weeks. So these things go on top of the press. I'm going to put those on top. Just do a quick check, see if anyone's there. So that goes on. I think I'll line it up this way is actually probably a pretty good place to line it up. And I have something that goes on top. I have to go get that. actually, before I do that, I've got a couple of wood blocks. Oh, I'm actually using the wood blocks to hold the phone. So that's going to be an issue. So what I think I'll do is I'll go ahead and basically the next process, you understand. Actually, let me show you in case you're there. By the way, since I have this handy, I thought I'd show it to you. This is blush. So we racked the blush wine. This is made from Tempranillo. And you can see there's a tiny bit of sediment there. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, this will continue to settle at the bottom and this will become clearer and clearer. And the blush wine is really good to drink early on. So this will be all ready in time for Thanksgiving. So that's the blush wine. It's a ratchet press that we have over here. So I'm getting the top of it. So this is the gear here for the ratchet press. It's actually quite heavy. This would be good weight lift training. But it goes on top here. And it spins down. Makes a lot of noise, by the way. And then what I end up doing is I have a lever right there, and I'll end up putting that in here. And then eventually, as that comes down, I'll go back and forth with this, like this. And it's slowly descending, putting pressure on the grapes, and then the liquid flows. So as I mentioned, generally we get about maybe 4 or 5 gallons out of something like this. And I try not to do too much, again, because they could maybe make the wine a bit more tannic than what we like. So it's gently pressed. Well, thank you for watching. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off, and we'll try this again sometime. Cheers.